Hey guys, so one of my subscribers, a bait kid, asked me how to get a job with no experience. You know, how do you gain experience to get a job when you have no experience? It's kind of like a catch-22. And I didn't want to make this video at first because I thought there's probably another video on YouTube that covers the exact same topic and is really good. And then I did a YouTube search like how to get a job with no experience. And like all the videos were like scams, like sign up for this pyramid scheme or sign up for my program and I'll teach you how to make your own job. And so that's why I want to make this video, so that there's actually a good video on how to get a job with no experience. First, let's talk about the resume. It's a good idea to build your resume as young as possible. You know, 16, 17, 18, start building your resume. Because when you sit down and actually think like, wow, like I have nothing to put on my resume, then you're actually going to think about all the things you could be doing to actually build up a resume. So it's important to start very early. And even if it's crappy at first, you just build upon a resume and eventually make it really good. For the resume structure, you put your education on top. The next thing that's going to go is you're going to want any kind of academic competitions. For engineering, this is like human powered vehicle, SAE, Formula SAE, which is like a car competition. There's also something called the Boeing case study competition, which is for business majors. So any kind of competition you want on there. And the reason why I recommend competitions and research is because those are kind of like good selling points and you don't have to like apply to get those, right? So that's something that you could talk about in an interview if they ask you like specific questions, because some of the common interview questions are going to be like, when was the time that you worked in a team and you had to like complete a goal together, or you know, what's some of your strength and what are some of your weaknesses? And when you have these concrete like research experience or competition experience, those are your best go-to for those kind of interview questions, like when was the time you worked in a team and you didn't get along with one of your teammates? That's a very common question, and without any work experience, regular work experience, you're gonna stutter on that question because you don't actually have any like experience, right? So like, what are you gonna say? But if you do have that competition / research experience, that's going to help you a long way. So education, competition, student competition, number 2, research, number 3, boom, now you have some good chunks to your resume, some valid stuff. Boom, last part, you're going to want volunteering and activities. Now, here's the thing, being a member of anything doesn't count for shit. Like, that doesn't do anything. You might as well not even put it on your resume. If you're just a member of Chinese Student Association, don't even put it on there. People want the leaders and they want the people that make the impact on whatever group it is. So if you're a volunteer for Red Cross, they want the lead volunteer, the volunteer that is sticking needles in people and drawing blood, like the volunteer that's improving whatever they're in. So when you join a club on campus or whatever it may be, always be thinking about how can you take this club to the next level, and that will give you your line on your resume. So it'll be like, Chinese Student Association president. People love presidents. It's really important if you're in college is to become the president of something by the time you graduate. That being a president of anything is a huge selling point for any job. If you're not social or you're not charismatic, too bad. Like, you gotta learn. You gotta learn. Everyone has a different leadership style. Some people can be shy and still be leaders. They're just really good decision makers, or they're just really imposing without talking much. Everybody has a different leadership style. You need to figure that shit out and suck it up. So now you got your full resume. It should be 1 page long with your shit that I just went over. Now let's go over where are you gonna look for the job. Now, if you're applying online, you know, going to In-N-Out's website or Apple's website and sending your resume, you might as well take your fucking resume and throw it in a trash can because they're not gonna see it. You need to go. I'm gonna make an analogy to dating, right? Imagine if I'm Asian, I'm looking for an Asian woman, and I'm like on JDate. I'm on JDate.com, which is a Jewish dating website. Like, I'm sending my little resume to the wrong place, right? I need to send my resume, my Asian resume, to the place where Asian girls are, because that way we're gonna find a compatibility match. When you apply online, typically online, like going to a company's website, say like Raytheon or Northrop Grumman or anything, BMW, it doesn't matter. They want people with 3 to 5 years of experience, like minimum. That's minimum. Like, so you might hear people getting jobs with like 1 or 2 years experience. Like 2 years actually you probably do, but usually 3 years of experience if you go to the company's website. But where you need to be looking if you're a student is your own college's career website, because then, you know, employers there are looking for college students and they're not going to have the expectation of experience. Number 2 is you need to go to your career fairs. Like, this is not negotiable, and you need to wear at least business casual. Most of your parents will buy you a suit if you tell them you're looking for a job and need a suit for a career fair. I know some of you guys might have stingy parents, but if you say everybody at this career fair is wearing a suit and I don't have a suit, then I think they'll probably buy you a suit. So, number 2 place, career fairs. My strategy when I was looking for an internship or a part-time job is I would apply to every single internship or part-time job that sounded remotely interesting to me on my school's career website. Like, every semester I would go through, because I mean it rotates like every semester. So every semester I would see like 50 applications pending, because that's what you need to do. Is like you need to practice over and over again. And in the beginning, when I first started writing cover letters, I wrote every cover letter individually to that very specific job. So I tailored every single skill set. Like, I have this skill set, and this is why it relates to this requirement that you have at this position. But then after a while, you kind of get used to it, and you have a bunch of like different cover letters, and they're just templates, so you just like adjust it after you gain experience in writing cover letters. So you apply where they're looking for you, which is career fairs. Number 2, I hate to say this, but when you're young, a lot of people get their first jobs through networking. This doesn't really hold true as you get older. Like, more older and experience and more like technical the position gets, less networking matters. But for your first job, networking matters. And usually at these places like part-time jobs like In-N-Out, Round Tail Pizza, McDonald's, they actually do take people's friends. Like, oh, you have a friend that they trust you, you know, like your employee. So yeah, when you're young, network does matter. I got my first job through my sister. She worked at Round Tail Pizza, and then she got me my job at Round Tail Pizza, and then I got one of my best friends in high school a job at Round Tail Pizza. So we all help each other out. Luckily, like, you know, those kind of part-time jobs are a bit easier to get. Second strategy that's really important, really important, is to take your resume. You get your resume and your cover letter, you dress business casual, and you hand your resume and cover letter in person. I did this for 3 internships. One was at a startup called Radio Flag, which I think they're still around, but personally I don't think they're gonna do that well. If you're from Radio Flag and you're watching this, I'm sorry, but this is a terrible idea. So I got an internship at Radio Flag for marketing. I got an internship at a database company called Grupo SMS. And I wasn't even the right major, right? So to work at the database center, you had to be a computer information systems major or a management and information systems major. But they gave me the internship anyways because I showed up in person and I interviewed really well. But he wouldn't have interviewed me in the first place if I didn't hand my cover letter and resume in person. And in both situations, I didn't even meet the person like that was gonna interview me. I was like, I'm trying to turn this into the hiring manager. And like I just handed it to the secretary because she was like, oh, they're not here right now, they're in a meeting. So in both cases I handed it to the secretary, but the secretary told the hiring manager that I showed up in person, and then I ended up getting 2 interviews out of 3 applications. I didn't get the 3rd one. I honestly forgot what the 3rd one was. So walking up in person and handing in your resume in person works well in 2 scenarios. Number 1 scenario that you have to check is to make sure it's a smaller company. Smaller companies will be more inclined to do those kind of things, because if you go to like the Googleplex in Mountain View, they're gonna be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing here? But smaller companies are more inclined because, you know, it's a more casual atmosphere. It's small. They have like 20 employees or 100 employees, so it works better for smaller companies, which is good because you, like, at this point you shouldn't be picky about what kind of job you're getting. Just get a job, and then later on, as you get more experience, be more picky about it. Okay. The second scenario where it works is more entry-level positions. You don't want to be showing up in person for a position that takes like 5 or more years of experience because it's just not effective. It's just weird. Yeah, really weird. So showing up in person is really important. And my strategy with this, when I did this, is I would apply to every single position on my college website that I could qualify for, and that sounded interesting to me. But the positions I really wanted and really liked, that's when I went in person and had in my resume and cover letter to them. And it really doesn't take that much time. It only took me half a day, like 3 hours altogether, to drive to 3 different places and drop in my resume and cover letter. So it's really quick and it's really effective. Extremely effective. One thing I forgot to mention earlier in this video is it's a lot easier to get an internship if you've had part-time jobs before. From my experience when I was in mechanical engineering, people that got internships faster or had multiple internships or got better internships already had part-time jobs. One example is one guy was a lifeguard and then he got an internship at Boeing and later got hired full-time at Boeing. So it's really important to think about a part-time job kind of like a stepping stone to getting an internship. It's like a baby step. Now, not everyone's gonna need to take that baby step to get an internship, but it does make it easier. Now, I know a lot of you may worry like, oh, I don't know how I can juggle school and working because I'm already struggling with school by itself. Keep in mind, it doesn't matter how many hours you worked. It just matters that you have it on your resume and you have the experience so that you can talk about it in an interview. So even if you have a part-time job and you only work 4 to 8 hours a week, that's still a line on your resume that will help. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is personality. So I have 2 younger cousins. One just started his freshman year in college, and the second just started his second year in college. And one thing I really noticed about their personality is they kind of seem kind of goofy and quirky, and I just can't take them serious. Like, there is no serious aspect about their personality, and that's a problem. You really want someone that can turn on the seriousness. I don't know what to call it. You really want someone that can be serious and is assertive and strong and confident when you interview. And if you're coming out just from high school, you really have no practice doing this unless you've interviewed a lot before, or you just had some kind of like professional experience where you had to practice being professional, being stern, and being serious. So that's really important to have. And if you don't have that, that's gonna hurt you a lot in finding a job. And so that's why I'm personally really worried for my cousins, because I'm afraid they're not gonna be able to gain this seriousness. So let me tell you guys a story. In college, I was in a business fraternity, Alpha Kappa Psi, which is intended to prepare you for a good career. So you practice interviewing, you practice writing cover letters, you practice a lot of interviewing, by the way, you practice making a resume, and you practice overall business skills of being serious and being professional, like wearing a suit properly, behaving properly, greeting people properly. Well, my particular chapter was pretty much split in half. We had one side that was really serious about the careers and were getting extremely good internships. We had one guy that interned at NASA in Texas, which was pretty cool. He got to travel over there for the summer. We had our president who interned at Boeing and as supply chain management, and he actually went to Seattle, Washington, so that was really cool. And then we had the other president before him got a full-time job at Deschutes, which is a huge advertising agency. And then there's me too. I was part of that side, as you might have guessed. And then there's the second side, who were pretty much guys who just didn't work at all. Like, they didn't have jobs, and they only did like the fraternity full-time in school. And the way they behaved was completely different from how the harder working side behaved. And we just couldn't even relate to each other. Like, the things we would talk about, our mannerisms, just like, I'm gonna guess like from their point of view, like we just seemed like really serious, uptight people that were anal. And then from our point of view, we just think they're kids. Like, I would look at some of them and I'd be like, do you guys realize how screwed you are after graduation? You guys have no real job experience. Like, you're screwed for a long time. I'd also look at them and think they're children. Yeah, that's a big thing too. But the whole point is, like, they had that same like goofy quirkiness and like not seriousness as my cousins, and you lose that after you get a job. Like, you'll always lose it after you get a full-time job. You lose that goofy quirkiness. It just, like, a full-time job, your first full-time job will suck your soul like a little bit. It'll change you. Okay, your first full-time cubicle job will change you, but you can still like emulate that seriousness before you get a full-time job. And you really do want that serious attitude, professional attitude when you do apply to jobs, and you want to be taken seriously. And when you speak, you want to be firm. And the most common problem I see with younger people is they're too wishy-washy. Like yeah, like this. Like, they'll be like, yeah, oh, like whatever, maybe, yeah, okay, maybe. Except they wouldn't even be holding eye contact, right? They're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe, yeah, I guess, eh. That's cool, because your high school teachers are not going to discipline you enough to like you can get away with that up until now, and now you have to change. And for a lot of you guys, applying to jobs is going to be your first time getting legitimately rejected by the real world. Like even colleges, like so what, you don't get into UCLA, it's not the end of the world, but if you get rejected from a job, that's like even a bigger deal. So it's gonna be harsh, you know, your first time getting rejected, legitimately rejected, and it's gonna be the first time the world says, I don't care if your personality sucks, you need to have the personality that fits a professional, and it's gonna suck. You know, that's your first time putting in a situation where you have to change, and like you just have to suck it up, you know. And in grade school, you didn't have to change. Your teachers just stuck with your bullshit. If you're an ass, like there's very little they can do about it. They could just send you to detention, right? You don't really have to fix it. But if you want a job, and you want a good job, and you want to consistently get jobs, a lot of you guys are gonna just have to change your personality, or at least shift yourself into a more serious personality where people can take you as a professional. That's my video, guys, on getting a job with no experience. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and also if you guys wanted me to cover another Q&A, then write in the comments below of what I should cover. Bye. Buckle, not below it and not way above it. I always tie my tie in a full Windsor, or sometimes called a double Windsor. I think a half Windsor looks half-ass. It did take me 4 hours to learn how to tie it